schools here in Minnesota, it's a huge challenge for parents, for example, because of the cultural shock here in the in the Twin Cities. It's totally different than the culture back home. So the majority of Somalis came with small childs, and the majority of them came like 2-3 years old, and then they grew with the American culture. But the parents, they still wanted to keep them in the the traditional way back home.
There were refugees who never seen school, who never seen education, who were brought here, and so you're lumping them, group of people who knew how to live regular life like any American, versus people who only knew how to live in a hut and had a camel, or that's their mentality, and they never had schooling except the refugee camp, where the UN actually introduced some schooling. And these people come here, and we expect them to think the same way and to do the same things. And it's not an easy thing.
The boys that are mostly misbehaving, it is just that either their fathers are not here, okay, or they actually not alive at all, or they are here, but the kids learn how to survive too. They are Americans to some extent, and the father is Somali. He speaks Somali. The kids are Americans. They don't speak Somali. Behaviorally, attitudinally, socially, all that, they will tell you just that exactly that they are Somalis. No, they are not actually. In every aspect of them is just American. Except that they also at times come to know that they are not fully accepted into the American society, so they came to know there is some kind of a stratus to be an American. So white Americans, Asian Americans, African Americans, they realize that they are at the bottom of the ladder. They don't want to be at the bottom of the ladder. So there's another conflict. And then that conflict somehow or the other manifests itself to, or leads to, a misbehavior of where they are not doing well at schools, where they actually doing all the things that you don't want them to do. There are a ton of them that who are in jail or in prisons.
Culturally, in Somalia, or even in the households that are led by, traditional families, the housework is mainly reserved for women. So when young women come from, school, they are more protected. So while, the boys are more free to go whenever, wherever. So the young women are more focused on their education, and they develop the skill of multitasking because they may work and go to school, work at home, work outside. So that's why they are more successful, because they can't just run around and just go and come back whenever, because they are very much protected families. They protect their girls. Each family wants to raise their daughters properly so they can become a very responsible young woman who gets married later on if she wants to, and have a family and so on. So they are more protected than the boys. They are more responsible and more focused.
Cultural conflict plays a huge part. It is that generational gap, not exactly age-wise, but cultural.
The culture we come from in Somalia is the culture in 1920s in America, where the school is responsible of the children. the child goes to school, the teacher has every power to punish that child if they misbehave. Nobody talks about it. They can hit them, they can yell at them, they can discipline them in any way, and the parent will come and support the teacher. So they come from that system to this system where, understandably, there are ways you cannot talk to children. So if the parent believes that, why did they fail? The teacher is supposed to teach them. Well, what can I do? And so that is also another huge issue that really Somali parents are saying, I don't know what to do. What do they expect? What do the school district expects from me? I give it to them. They're supposed to train them and teach them.
Confused parenting is just everywhere. It is a parent that who thinks that it's still whatever worked back in Somalia is just going to work here. You don't use the same mentality and the same kind of a discipline that you were applying in Somalia here. And if you try it, as a matter of fact, you are just exactly going to break this window. It is a child that who is growing. It is a child that who is himself is confused. To some extent, because even though he is in every way American, it is just that at home, at least, everyone is just saying that he is Somali.
I was asked to lead something called Somali BTA. So the principal at the time called me and said, Mariam, I need your help. So what happened? This student was kicked out of school, for a couple of weeks. And the principal realized that the mother is not understanding because he's lying to her. So that's why he called me. So I came in and he said, Mariam, I need you to help me here. Every morning he takes his bag, goes to the mosque, and then waits all his friends to come back from school and goes to home. Principal told me this story, and so I translated this story to the mother. And the mother now is furious, pull up her shoe, try to hit the son in front of the principal. And I'm talking to her. And she said, he told me he gets A's, straight A's. I thought I was coming to get a reward because my son is so good. He didn't tell me that story. So the children somehow find the discrepancy.
One of the biggest struggles right now, especially for the youth, is the opioid epidemic and how it has hit, especially within the Twin Cities and even in rural towns, very hard. And we don't have institutions or people or agencies in place that can cope with this and, educate the parents. How do you identify your kid is is abusing some substance? You wouldn't know, because we also have another issue that's layered on top of it, because the youth right now who, let's say a kid who grew up here, the parents don't speak English very well, he doesn't speak any Somali. There's a communication gap. So there's that weird gap between you and your parents. Your parents are not really aware of what you do, what you're up to. You don't really communicate with them. And then if you get, dabble in opioid use or other drugs, and then all of a sudden, there's that divide. And next thing you know, that kid overdoses and the parent has no idea how that happened. And then we hide it. We have a culture of hiding and running away from these type of stigmas. So then we say, well, my kid died in his sleep, natural causes. So now you're not helping the next family avoid this tragedy. So there's so many little things in place. It's the same issue with mental health, the idea of denying it, the stigmatization of it, the saying that this is not us, this is not something we do. We're Muslim, we're Somali, we don't do these things. Well, unfortunately, they exist and your kids are on it. Now, how do you deal with it? How do you not shame them to run away from help? I know folks who think seeking help and getting treatment, they would never do that because that would expose the fact that they have a problem. That would stigmatize their family. So they rather stay on that path with the likelihood of overdosing sometime in the future.
The accessibility of these drugs is one thing. That youth, we all know youth will try everything. And and they don't have a good network in the house. So you have a mother and a father who do not understand what that is. And to them, they said, you go to school, you go to Duxi, where you learn the Quran, and you be a good kid. Well, in the streets or in Duxi, people are like, try this, try this. before they know it, they become addicted. The family, they don't know what to do with it. The only thing they know is let's go to the mosque and there's something wrong with them and read the Quran over them. That's the key thing they go. They don't understand this mental health is something this child is getting worse. And so there is no unit to talk about that. And so children then are seen low in the community. So the community say, oh, so-and-so, their children are doing this. So it's a taboo in the society for a child to become such thing, and nobody talks about what drives them. You know, if you think of people who are addicted, they say most of the time they become addicted because they have an issue. The addiction is just a symptom. There's an issue they're facing, and nobody is really talking about the issue. So that's something I like to say. And how do we do it, and how do we help the parents to understand it so they can understand their children?
I'm going to get in trouble here. The scholars are also Somali. They grew up in Somalia. Most of them did not exactly get into the education system of this world that we live. So don't only take advice and consultation. Don't only consult with only the religious community, okay? Because once the kids leave the mosque, they live in the United States, they live with the rest of the world. Just try to find out a way that you are informed about both worlds. And there's gotta be somewhere, there's gotta be some kind of a middle ground to arrive. If you try to balance the religion concept with the social issue that the kids are facing.
Either you or your child has a mental health issue, it's the same as having a cancer. If you have a cancer, you know it's a disease and you will go and seek help. Mental health is no different than having diabetes or having cancer. There's a chemical imbalance in your body, and the doctors need to know that. Whether they can do it with counseling and no medications, or you may need a medication for a short period of time. But that's not something we're prone to understand it. It's a struggle, it's a huge challenge. And I'm sure mental health is a huge challenge for all of us in America, but I think it's worse in the Somali community because it's not something we know, it's not something that families understand it. And it will be so helpful, instead of focusing, organizations may focus on the child, it's so good to focus on the whole family. So the family then can support the child and understand what's happening with that child.
We are trying to help our youths within the community. A lot of parents are, sometimes hopeless. They don't have a lot of education. They don't have a lot of resource. So the mental health is, I think, the biggest challenge that we're facing in the modern time.
Identity is very important. Identity is absolutely very important. Identity is just that if you do not know who you are, you do not know where you are going. You have no confidence. You should have an idea of who you are, but it is not easy to grasp if you don't have enough resources actually that ground you to it. Resources of, for example, education, possibly, resources of someone that you could actually lean on, resources of someone that you can confide into. Still, it comes back to the role model issue, role modeling. So if you are lost and someone is able to tell you exactly where to go and where to find yourself.
You wear two different jackets, right? When you're at home, you're Somali. When you're outside, you're not. Our kids they replicate what they see. And that's mass consumption of urban culture that we consume. Then you become a byproduct of what you consume. And that has been the case for every immigrant community that exists. The first generation thrive, works hard because they know what they came from. The second generation has no clue what you came from. They don't know what the struggles back home is. They don't know what how advantageous it is for them to be in America, to have, free education, ability to work and actually earn money.
The first generation, those of us, they don't even want to hear our accent. They have to put up with that, as a matter of fact. First of all, they don't speak Somali. Second of all, until they get to college, as a matter of fact, they don't really want to have anything to do with us. Not only the language. My son does not want to have anything to do with me. There are a lot of them who are not as appreciative as we are of being here. They are not, because they just exactly saying that this is mine too. For me, I'm just saying, okay, you allowed me into your house, so I appreciate that. For them, no. It is where I was born. It's where I was born. It is my country. It is just that I am not begging you to accept me as an equal. Where I myself just exactly say, you gave me something and I didn't have anything. They are not taking any prisoners.
So the second generation kids here, they are very fortunate. The youth has a more chance than us or than their parents. The next generation of Somalis will be, in NASA, or they will head Google. They will be, because the good thing about Somalis, they don't scare.
In Minnesota, whether it's the state, organizations, private sector, what is or has been missing in most cases is giving opportunities to college students, for instance, internship opportunities. And I think they need to target Somali young men and women while they are still in college studying, because then they will have the opportunity to meet different companies and organizations, and the organizations would get to know young people who are potential employees for them in the future, as well as also training, skills training programs for young men who might not have completed high school, dropped out of school. They need skills to work.
They are young, they're growing, and they become now Minnesotans, so they're gonna participate in the workforce of the state. So I think that to me, that's the biggest benefit that will benefit the state and will benefit the East Africans, and especially the state of Minnesota need to understand investing in the college and universities, because it's going to just benefit us.
When you have more people working, you have more taxpayers. When people pay taxes, obviously, it's good for the state and the counties and so on. People would buy homes. Their lives will improve. They will spend more money and contribute to the economy. So I think we need to think holistically in terms of supporting young people, because there are so many talented, educated young people in the community who, many of them, might not have jobs, or they are doing jobs that they are underemployed. So I think given opportunities will also benefit the society in general and the state of Minnesota.
The biggest advantage that Minnesota has, I think we have in college and elementary schools and in university, I think we have like maybe 30,000 Somalis who are in schooling right now, and this is like a big asset for the state of Minnesota, for the workforce. America is an aging, they consider like an aging country, but all these immigrants coming young is an asset for them.